The Rip Van Winkle Caper was shot immediately after the previous episode, 100 yards over the rim. Since they both involved scenes that took place on location in the desert, just about the same areas were used. If there's an episode this one heavily reminded me of, it's I Shot an Arrow into the Air from Season 1. It's got a similar tone and follows more poor souls as they pace through the endless desert under an unforgiving sun. The Rip Van Winkle Caper continues the legacy of other Twilight Zone episodes shot in the desert, like The Lonely and King 9 Will Not Return, but because of its diverting initial premise, it stands out as unique among its peers. After four crooks successfully steal a massive gold shipment, their leader, Farwell, has a plan to escape the authorities that's so crazy it just might work. An expert in noxious gases with a doctorate in both chemistry and physics, Farwell and his team hide in a nearby closed-off cave and enter suspended animation for 100 years. According to Farwell, when they awaken, they can re-enter the world rich beyond their wildest dreams, with not a single person chasing them down. But clashing personalities and pure greed threaten to upend Farwell's perfect master plan. Hot off the trails of the Odyssey of Flight 33, Justice Addis was back to direct a different kind of time travel story. The idea of suspended animation is one Rod Serling used several times in his scripts, but this one felt fresh since the concept hadn't been used in the Twilight Zone yet. The cave interiors were shot inside MGM Studios, and the glass coffins were cool-looking prop elements that added to this production's visual style. The shots of the crew slowly being surrounded by the gas were really ominous and gave that sequence an appropriately creepy tone. It's always great to see real locations on screen for these episodes, and all the exteriors for this one look great. This variety of settings gave the Rip Van Winkle Caper a dynamic group of environments for us to be engrossed by. With the rocky, dry landscape as a backdrop, this installment really shines in some great performances by Oscar Baregi Jr. as Farwell and Simon Oakland as De Cruz. These two had some strong tension in their chemistry that further elevated the story around it. The interactions they have later on in the episode are a definite highlight. Baregi traveled back into the Twilight Zone with two more appearances in Death's Head Revisited and Mute, while Oakland came back one more time in Season 4's The 30 Fathom Grave. All of the Season 4 installments were an hour long, and I'm looking forward to breaking down that one when we get to it down the road. When the team wakes up from their century slumber, they're not sure the plan worked until they discover one of their crew members, Irby, has been long dead. A rock fell and broke his glass chamber, which allowed the gas keeping him alive to escape. Maybe deciding to sleep in glass for 100 years wasn't a great idea. The skeleton was a nice touch, though. Division among the remaining crew escalates when, following an argument, De Cruz hits Brooks with their truck and kills him. It's not the best car collision we've seen on the show, but you have to respect the risk that stunt guy took being so close to a speeding vehicle. A century of sitting in a cave seems to have destroyed the brakes as the truck drives straight off a cliff just after De Cruz bails out. This leaves only Farwell and De Cruz to collect the stolen gold and try to reach civilization on foot. The pair of thieves walk through the desert with the gold bars on their backs. At some point early on, Farwell lost his canteen of water. De Cruz tells him he can have a swig of his for 1 gold bar, and it continues like that for hours under the scorching sun. When De Cruz ups the price to 2 gold bars, Farwell gets the jump on him and kills De Cruz with the very gold they were exchanging. Walking alone now with all he can carry, that being a single bar, Farwell collapses and is soon found by a passerby. He tries to offer the gold to the traveler for a ride into town, but Farwell's body gives out and he dies laying in the hot sand. Confused, the traveler returns to his futuristic car where his wife is waiting for him. He mentions he'll call the police to come pick up the body, but recalls how strange it was that the man offered him gold as if it were valuable. In this future, gold is now manufactured and worthless. I like this ending. Again, it's sort of similar to the twist in I Shot an Arrow into the Air, but leaves you with a bit of a different feeling. The 4 members of this crew weren't good guys, but desperation such as this has a way of stripping all of us down to the very base instinct of survival. And I personally didn't feel a strong sense of cosmic justice when the Farwell character died the way he did. I felt sorry for him, which means this was an effective way to create sympathy for a character like that. It also helps that De Cruz was much worse in comparison. His quick turn to murder came off as somewhat unpredictable, which kept me guessing where they were going with the story. One other production note I should mention is that the futuristic car the couple are seen driving at the end is from a very specific movie. You know the deal by now, right? It's yet another prop that was originally used in 1956's Forbidden Planet. Not as many props or as much footage was used this season compared to the first, but it's funny to hear that movie pop up so often in the behind-the-scenes history of so many episodes. I wanted to also mention that at the end of Rod Serling's on-camera tease of the following week's episode, he does a little ad read for a cigarette company.
If you just took this puff, you'd agree. It's the softest taste of all. Before we meet again, try Oasis.
It's so funny to see smoking promoted so heavily back in the day. He did one the previous week too, and that might be the first time I actually saw him puff a cigarette on camera in this show. Whenever he shows up as the narrator, he's usually just holding a lit one in his hand. Anyway, the Rip Van Winkle Caper fits comfortably into my recommendations. Check it out for yourself. Just don't fall asleep while watching. You may wake up 100 years later to find yourself trapped in the Twilight Zone.